just for you. Getting it in, getting it in, we getting it in. Sleep in the day, yo. Yeah, they be like, wait, boy, what you shooting too high like? Man, what you can do on my skylight? Yeah, they be like, wait, boy, what you shooting too high like? Man, what you can do on my skylight? Yeah. We can get it back, we can get it in. We sleep in the bang, so we can get it in. We can get it back, we can get it in. We sleep in the bang, yo. All alive, take it back, yo. Take it back, oh, yeah. Come take it, we take it back, yo. No other life, just this one. What you waiting for the win just for you? No other life, just this one. What you waiting for the win just for you?
2 Corinthians 5:14 through 18. For the love of Christ controls us, because we have concluded this, that one has died for all. Don't go past that all. For all. Therefore, all have died, and he died for all, that those who live might no longer live for themselves. Just living for ourselves. But for him who for their sake died, and he was raised. From now on, that now on moment for me was 1998. Therefore, we regard no one according to the flesh. There's no questions here. People aren't just flesh, aren't skin, aren't gender, aren't extrinsic values. There's so much more. Even though we once regarded Christ according to the flesh, we regard him thus no longer. Therefore, don't leave here yet. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. All this is from God, who taught Christ, reconciled us to himself, and gave us the ministry, the service of reconciliation. Okay. We're going to stop sharing for a moment. That was a moment where I was speaking to everyone, but also specifically to people of the Christian faith or followers of Christ. Woe to us for spending so much time focusing on people's flesh and just physical attributes and even actions, and taking that and devaluing them and making the choice and the false determination that maybe Christ didn't die for them as well. That's a lie. For those of you that aren't of faith, let you know that if you've seen a version of that does not align with that verse in so many other places where Jesus shows his radically inclusive love, where he was comfortable and welcomed and desired to hang and be with everyone in every walk of life, in every journey of their faith or lack thereof at their time, in their conduct or lack of perfect conduct, then you've seen a false version of the love of God. And I'm asking you to reset and maybe align with some people that believe in the foundational truth that we were made equal, that no one is too far from his arms, and that all of us can be reconciled. And our job is not only to not separate, to not break, to not judge, but is to do the opposite, to embrace. So I urge the churches and the people of faith that are doing that, lean in. And I urge folks who are not even of that persuasion yet to continue to love us. Because with those actions, you're much closer, whether you know it or not, to what Jesus will be doing anyway. And then we'll further that conversation as we go. It's a special day. It's hour 6. It's reconcile. And this is one of those catchphrase words that we like to either rush to or leave the journey there. And we can't. It took 5 principal steps, 5 hours before we got here for a reason. Because you don't just rush to reconciliation. We're going to show why. And there's things that we think are reconciliation, and those aren't. For example, reconciliation doesn't mean we agree upon everything, or we will after we're reconciled. Reconciliation doesn't mean we're going to be best friends. Reconciliation doesn't mean that we're even going to continue in some kind of intimate relationship, but it does mean we see eye to eye. There is a laying down of the arms. There is a moving forward, a collaboration of sorts. And we're going to dig into that. And then there's 2 steps after that, because you can't take the love out of it. And God knows there are some action steps that need to happen, not just to talk reconciliation. So today, and I need to get into it because it's a long interview. It's a great interview with Dr. Sean Moore. You don't want to miss it. On top of that, I'm going to share a quick clip of a moment that was a pivotal, paramount moment that I've never shared publicly, because I did not want to share it without the context of what was happening. Because the mistake that we make is that we take a paintbrush for any situation or event or moment or person and say all the people who were a part of this or around this are like this, or they must be thinking like this. And I did an Ironman, proud of it, with Team World Vision, and it was awesome. But the enemy tried to ruin it with the handful of people that were not treating me as an equal human being or valued participant and endurance athlete, of which I did finish 15 hours, 50 minutes, and 15 seconds. But that wasn't the whole story. So here's the things that we want to pull away from or leave you with as we go into this video, because we share that slide very quickly. This is what we want you to know about reconciliation, the definition. And then we're going to get to that interview. You don't want to miss it. Reconcile, to restore friendly relations between. Watch this. Here's why we need the first 5 steps. You can't restore something that never was. See that? So some of us are talking about reconciliation. Some of us are starting before that. That's why we had to actually understand. So that's why connect was before reconcile. Because there's nothing to restore if there wasn't ever an opportunity and or a desire to have a relations, right? And by default, we all have some relation to each other because we're the United States of America. And that's why these 8 hours to choose are important. And that's what we started on the July 4th. And that's what we're saying. Let's be the United States of love, not hate. And as we restore some of the sins of our past that we did not do directly, but that we have continued, we're hoping to reconcile. And secondly, to cause to coexist in harmony, not just to tolerate each other, make or show to be compatible. I love that. But none of this says to assimilate. None of this says to force into a way of thought, because it's not that. That's not what reconciliation is. And it's not necessarily neat and pretty. And it is difficult to get there at times. But it also is not the end of the journey to oneness. So let's lean into this interview. I'll talk to you a bit when we come back, and let us all be changed, because none of us have arrived there. I think that's what I'm going to say. But here's a couple of bullets. We can't legislate or educate ourselves out of this hole we've gotten ourselves in. There has to be some one-on-one life shifts and heart shifts. And yes, I do believe spiritual, supernatural shifts in what's going on. The second thing I'll say, Zoom. Sorry, I brought you into the room magically. I can't act like we haven't absolutely seen each other through 2018, because we've had a couple of short conversations, but I want to introduce everyone here to, I'm going to reveal one of my reveals already, Dr. Sean Moore, living in the exact area of Minneapolis, Minnesota, or right outside of it. I don't know, might be a suburb of it, right?
No, right in the heart.
Right in the heart. Oh man, we've got so much to talk about. Right in the heart of it, because there's just what our country has been going through right there in the midst of the George Floyd public and the ripples of that. And we're going to talk about some of the potentially, God willing, positive ripples of that as well in this conversation that we're going to have. Sure. But we're right here in the midst of number 6 of 8 principles. We've been doing the 8 hours to choose, Sean, and it's okay. You probably haven't watched all 5 hours yet. Don't worry, you've got the rest of the year. They're all they're all in our inventory at Facebook. But Sean is let me just let you know, a pastor. He is I know, kickboxing, Ironman, does the endurance athlete for the cause. So I say a charity endurance athlete, which we're going to talk more about that. Family man, father, and tell me a bit more about your family, because I don't want to get the numbers wrong, the kids wrong, any of that.
Oh, sure. I am in a multicultural, multiracial relationship. My wife would be considered European American. She would consider herself to be French Canadian, Green Bay Packer. She loves the Pack.
You must love her.
I do. I'm not a football fan, so it's real easy that way. So she wins. I got a daughter who is 15 years old, who's going on 23. She's giving me a run for my money, right? And I got a son who's 13. So I got a 15, a 13-year-old, and we live in St. Paul, and my church is in Minneapolis, and we literally, our church is located a few blocks away from 38th in Chicago, where Floyd actually lost his life. So we're in the midst of it here.
I know I have time allotted for this, but I love the way I'm doing it, because I'm really going to let the spirit of this moment lead, because this step is extremely important, this principle. And oftentimes when we have this conversation, as you know, or as you're learning with Mission1Race, we are specifically around, excuse me about that sound, we're specifically centered around human reconciliation. A huge part of that is racial or ethnic reconciliation.
Yeah.
People like to fast track to that word and then actually feel that word is it. We're good. We're reconciled, man. We shook your hands. I said, sorry about that. Fries on me. Right. And we're good. Yeah. So my initial question, as we even begin to reveal more about you through this conversation, because one of the things I just have to lean into now is, Sean, I don't know how many, I wish I should have looked that up. How many years you serve in active duty in the law enforcement yourself? There you guys go. Let's be real. We let our biases fly. And I know some of you are looking, and we're not mad at you and saying, say what? Because I get that looks when I go mechanical polymer engineer, and they're like, oh, or engineer, and say, which engineer? And it's a little bit of a little bias, like you're too surprised. You're a little too surprised that I'm an engineer. I think some people are too surprised that you're a police officer right now. I'm going to keep it real. Can we keep it real on this interview? Like, they're like, what? Police officer? Yes. So tell me a little bit about that.
So my history of dealing with enforcing of rules and laws begins in the military. So I was a security officer there. I did security alert teams. I did a backup alert force. I was also on an entry team. So I did that for 4 years. Then I got out and I worked at Mall of America Security for 7 years, where my job, again, it's enforcing policies and rules that have to do with force. So I did it for 7 years. And then I became a police officer for the city of Brooklyn Center. I did that for 3 years. So that's just time teaching and training people how to engage in, how to create environments where people should follow laws.
Such varied experience. I don't know if how could I say this? And I have questions in front of me, but I have to follow my heart. You are needed, just you. Not even the knowledge, not even the head knowledge, how you live your life and have lived your life with who you have done life with, the children you are raising in this socially bipolar country, your background in the military. I'm almost overwhelmed, because a lot of the stuff I knew, your time as a mall security law enforcer, and then your time in as an active police officer, you were just doing that because that was your passion and heart. Now you find yourself, right? We've experienced this throughout our life in a time where there's almost a lack. I don't know when it happened. There's almost this malnutrition of cultural IQ and experience to where folks are saying like, how are you living like that? And you think to yourself, maybe like, I'm just living. I just look at a person. I go by the character. I follow the rules, right? You're not thinking, you're not going out, I'm about to be super diverse today. Like when you look at your wife, right? You're like, no, that's my baby.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. I think everyone, if you pay attention, will find themselves in their Moses moment, right? Their Moses moment.
Give me that. Expand that.
My Moses moment. So the only person that could have led the Israelites to freedom was Moses. He was the only one. And here's the reason why he was the only one, because no one's going to get to see Pharaoh. Like, no one's going to, hey, I want to talk to Pharaoh. Like, who is it? One of those Hebrew slaves. Oh, okay. Cut his hands off, send him back to the field, right?
But it's not funny. It's true.
Right. So the only one that would be able to talk to Pharaoh would have been an adopted son, right? Now, just because he's an adopted son, where'd he come from? The wilderness, right? So the only one to show up to Pharaoh to let my people go and then lead them back to where he came was Moses. And so I think I'm in my Moses moment. I think that my degree in anthropology, being married the way I am, law enforcement, all these different experiences that I wasn't thinking about, one day I'm going to be a police trainer and I'm going to do this multicultural things and I'm going to be this brouhaha. Like, no, I just was living my life. And these things started happening and I thought, I have an answer. Well, from a book? No, from my life. I've experienced. Right. And so I think if you pay attention, you'll find yourself in your Moses moment. Like this is the moment that was created for me to do my particular thing based upon my life experiences.
Sean, excuse me. And here's another couple of bombs we're going to drop on you all. Excuse me, Dr. Sean Moore. I don't know if I introduced. Listen, and you're so humble. You're not going to correct me, but you just finished.
Yeah,
I think you came from up under a rock. I wasn't personally offended, but I have been trying to keep in contact with you for almost 2 years now, where we're going to talk about how we first met. And you last month finished. How do you feel? And congratulations. Like, there you go again. Let's go ahead and kick down another wall. And you tell me, if we don't take a moment to be honest and real, that if Dr. Sean Moore was walking down the street, you don't lie to ourselves right now, would you go like, doctor and professor at Bethel University, law enforcement officer, former military, married to a European wife, two multi-ethnic children, implicit bias trainer, which you're going to talk about now. We would not. I'm not even saying you would not. We would not. We wouldn't go down that list and just recently finished his doctorate. That's why we have to pause and stop and say, yes, sometimes we're right, but oftentimes and most of the times our prejudices, our prejudging of people and humans lead us into horrible corners and assumptions, make us afraid of things we shouldn't be. We're going to do something later in this year called the Why campaign, Sean, which I already had you in my mind to be a part of it. And we just ask basic questions like, why are you afraid of me? You've been told to be afraid of me. Right. Indirectly and directly. Well, why do you feel, why don't you help me? You know what I mean? Right. Just basic things like that, both sides of that coin. So what I want you to potentially lean into, what's that like, and who are you teaching implicit bias to? You're teaching for years, and how long has that been happening? And maybe a little bit about what implicit bias even is, because we have that on our dangerous journey to hate and racism and so forth. On that journey, it's an early step. I love that you're going towards the bias, not just towards the racism, if you will. But it starts in the bias, right?
We all have biases. We all do. And the full term is social cognition syndrome. So it's this idea of we all have a leaning. So we all have a worldview, and our worldview kind of shapes the way in which we see reality. And within this worldview, we are continually being fed information from the objective world to my subjective understanding, right?
Yes.
And so then I get this understanding, then I go out in the world and I start navigating it. And literally, if I've had a really bad experience with the color red, like the color red, there's something about the color red that is just not a good thing for me. So you know what? Let's just wait to make believe. Let me hit it home for you. Okay. Liver and onions. I can't stand liver and onions.
Just you saying it made me want to throw up.
So when I was a kid, I had a bad case of liver and onions. So my grandmother would make liver and onions all the time, and I would eat it. Like something you kind of grow up doing. Remember one time eating some liver and onions, and it got caught. Like I had too big of a chunk, and it literally went in to my throat. And my grandfather had to come, and he had to do the Heimlich in me, and he shot out. And literally, I didn't know there was a passageway from air from your eyeball, because literally brown gravy flew out my eye. Yep, out my eye and my nose at the same time. Now, because of that incident right there, whenever I smell liver and onions, I get queasy. That day, I stopped eating liver and onions, right? Yeah. And so what we do is we have these traumatic events, or not even a traumatic event, it just keeps laying over time, to where you then go out and you have these implicit biases. Like it could be internalized, like let someone call a little kid stupid over and over and over again. That kid will find himself having learning disabilities. Or to tell someone, those people over there, they behave like that. Then that's all you know is those particular things. And so I think racism is a natural byproduct of implicit bias. It's naturally that way.
And we've not aligned. Like meaning like we haven't had these type of conversations yet. And I'm telling you, I could share, and I think I may organically do this and have a number of questions to talk to you about. But I want to lean into this concept, this connection between the really nuanced biases, right? So if we start off, let's say the ideal existence for us, I believe, is oneness. I think we've been made in community. We need each other. Life is better with each other. You ever like have those positive moments with a stranger? You go like, that was excellent. Something stupid. Like you both were joking about Charlie Brown. I don't know. You're in the grocery. Yeah. It happens to all of us. And we go, man, what just happened in my heart? Like, I just feel like I grew a bit. I was a stranger. We had a moment. I helped them, or they just said something that resonated. That's oneness. Right? That's the good stuff. Then what's built in is a lie. Let's seed plant it through media, through parenting, through experiences indirectly that we're intrinsically different. And I use the word intrinsically on purpose. Like there's something like not the same with us, not just skin color, whatever, to the core. And then that makes room for what? Inequality and bias, because bias is preferences, right? Preferences. You move from that unchecked. What can you move into? Prejudices. So now your biases becomes almost markers that you're like prejudging situations and people based on those biases. Then you move in unchecked, you get a little bit of authority, and you end up discriminating people without knowing. Like you end up saying, no, we can't have too many of these folks because I'm fearful of that. So keep out. I truly believe there's a supernatural step where the secret ingredient, that's a horrible secret ingredient between the isms, the phobias as well, the acts of hate that we see, we're almost like, is that person possessed? I think the answer is kind of yes. I think that discrimination mixed with some supernatural hate from an enemy that wants to destroy us becomes that list. And there's something we've created called the Dangerous Journey that talks about that. That's why it's important for you to be speaking into. Do you even agree with that concept and expand that? Because we haven't talked about that full journey, but that's a journey that I really prayerfully feel like that's what's happening. No one starts off usually, I think, going like, I'm thinking I want to live a life of racism. Right. That's a marker for me.
Right. That's a top behavior, and it's unnatural. It's an unnatural behavior because when have you ever seen a grizzly bear out in the woods say to another grizzly bear, I can't stand you because you got this color skin, or you're a white bear, or so in this natural environment, humans, just like animals, are only in for a few things, right? And that is food and water, shelter, reproduction, right? So as an anthropologist, you're constantly like, how do I get some food? How do I get something to drink? How do I have a fire? And then how do I reproduce myself? Now, when those things get disrupted with the worldview, it's like, well, those people want my food. Those people want my water. And then, I want to keep my gene pool strong, so I don't want to mix with you. Again, it's these ideas of these natural phenomena that make us human that we literally do just the opposite of. And you'll see this in the stories of individuals who have transformation, those that were like stark, hardcore racists.
Yes.
Right. And then you see them again a year later, like, what happened? Well, I got educated, right? My mind got right. And so it is, I mean, if it can be learned, then it can be unlearned. There's nothing that you can learn that can't be unlearned, right?
Dr.
You can
Sean,
unlearn anything.
You're blessing me, and I almost want to give away a few of the reveals that we're going to do towards the end, but we're not going to, just as far as our alignment with Mission1Race and so forth, because it's encouraging. Because I'm not going to lie to you, it's discouraging at times when we're hit with an onslaught of, I think, a disproportionate amount of extremes, right? Either extremely naive, and I've even seen Black and brown folks talking like, oh, what is racism? But like, stop it. Okay, I don't know why you think that helps. In denial, that doesn't help anyone. I mean, people are suffering. Like, what? Sexism? That'd be like that saying that to a woman. Please go talk to a woman. She can go down a laundry list, right, of chauvinist moments and stuff. For you to go like sexism, I see all you like. No. So that's not okay. But then the other extreme, there's actual people tangibly that think life is not only better, but meant to be separated and segregated, which again, that is unnatural. It's definitely not faith-based. There's nowhere in, they use stories out of context and stuff like that. It's always been the plan at the beginning in the one creation. It's the plan in the middle when he launches the actual church that we're representing, where every nation was present. And that's not nation from the 270 countries that we know now, but he means nations as in ethnic groups, color, a complexion, hair, cultural IQ, the whole deal. And then again in Revelations, when he says, guess what? When I call us all in, I'm not calling white folks, then Native Americans, and then Black, and then Asian. No, I'm calling you all into heaven, and you're going to see a sea of those same all nations. So that's the plan. If you want to bring a piece of heaven to earth.
And so when you see humanity try to stop diversity, like, we don't want it. We don't want diversity. We're bored. What should we do? I don't know. Let's build an apartment building to get to God. Okay. No, you will not do this. You will do as I told you to. And so now you all got different languages. And so now scattered, right? Again, so as humans, we build different cultures based upon the environment that we're in, right? So if you find yourself in a snow tile place, you're not sitting around with a loincloth on because you'll die. But if you're in a desert somewhere or in the jungle somewhere, I mean, again, it's this idea that, even before you got humanity, God made multiple fish, multiple birds, diversity in God is the way it should be.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to trudge through these questions to see, because I know there's gold in here, and even the conversation we need to have. But I already can tell you, y'all, just hold fast. I'm going to be talking less because I have at least 10 more minutes worth of at least. And the good part is, again, there's a reveal coming. This won't be the last time we see each other. I'm going to give you a lob so I don't forget it. You have said statements to me before, and this is one of them. I'll share the heavier one first, and then we'll talk about this other one. It was the moment that we were in Ironman, and where we met. Sean and I met. We did not know each other, but it was very transparent and very open that we were at Ironman, Wisconsin, there for charity Ironman. We trained for a full Ironman for Team World Vision, for kids that did not have access to clean water, did not know each other, all kind of saw each other on Facebook for the group. And man, we just kind of like lovingly sized each other up. It's like, so you're Sean Moore. I heard about you. It's kind of looked at me like, you're Rich Rel. Okay. Because, in the conversations, it always comes up because people are like, there's this Black dude training for Iron Man. And we're laughing because it's not usually tense, but it makes it weird when you act like I feel like there should have been a conversation saying that there's going to be 5 of 3,000 people there that have Black skin. Like, it's kind of like, that would slightly be helpful, maybe for the initial cultural shock. And I think maybe for other people, because I feel like that look was going on. It wasn't hateful, but there definitely was a like, what are y'all doing here? And how did you get here? How did you feel in that experience? And then I'll talk specifically about our connection and the moment that was possibly heavy. Yeah.
Well, I think part of the training was doing some, I did 3 triathlons while I was here. So I did, I think 2 sprints and 1 Olympic just to get ready. And I'd go to these minor events and people would look at me like, oh, what are you doing here? And I'd be like, oh, I'm here to compete. And like, oh, okay. I got this wetsuit on because I'm just bored out of my mind. And I don't know what.
I'm a fan. I like to sit full Ironman gear and watch you all do it.
Right. So, I mean, I got this sense that that I was on the outside looking in. And I also think that because of its roots and how it got started, it very much is an elitist type of a sport because number one, you need at least 20 hours. You need at least 20 hours to train.
For a full, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you need that kind of time to do that kind of work. And again, it's the idea who has that kind of time, who has that kind of money. I mean, a sweatsuit, $1,000, a bike, $3,000, good shoes, I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's not a bad thing. It's just that it comes out of a cultural norm that where these things are okay. Because I came from an environment was, here is a $15 basketball, go to the park.
And don't come back. Listen. And after you did done playing basketball, figure out something else, pick up sticks or something.
Right.
Go play that.
When the lights go on, you can come home.
Right. And for me, when I was playing football, which again, absolutely kept me out of the streets, absolutely kept me out of drugs. Like it was that story somewhat in a suburban Chicago setting. Right.
Yeah.
But it was like coaches and God bless my parents for paying for my registration fee because I was talented. Right. So I know my privilege in that. My athletic ability totally opened up doors. Shoes. Right. Equipment, those fees they weren't magically covered. So there's definitely always another story to this where people are seeing there's a gap but in entry. And shout out to our friend Ty Eckert, who I would not have done Ironman without him. And Ty is a man of inclusion that has a heart for turning over endurance sports and triathlon specifically. And I would even say, let me say this, because we're saying the name and I'm going to reach out. I've sat on this for a while, because I did not want to just publicly blast and undermine an entire community. And I'm talking about Ironman right now. I'm talking about Ironman Wisconsin specifically, and highlight a moment of almost an extreme setup and at a minimum discrimination, but it felt a lot like racism, right? Where I was accused, right? A whole system of lies set up with the officials there, and physically agitated and almost wanting to make me break and have a public angry black man moment. Everybody has some sort of limit where I'm just like, it was surreal after using my image and likeness, and I'm gonna play that video and so forth, and it was wonderful. But watch this. That was 0.1% of all the love I felt. Right, Sean, you can attest to that. Like though it was implied and a little bit like, what are you doing here? You're like it was a Jackie Robinson type of a moment for us, right? When you have that many people and that few representation. But I didn't want to just highlight these handful of people, probably about 3 of them, that had thought it was okay because they didn't understand I was there and wanted to prove something to me. It was very a Toby moment. We're going to tell you when we say you have a penalty, and it was an elaborate setup that your wife, God bless her, saw with her own eyes after they got done with the tape, how they tried to strip from me this handful of people, physically agitate me, disrespect me. And you were there when I was having my meltdown before Mission1Race. This is 2018. There would be no Mission1Race, my friend, my brother, if you were not there. Ty, Greg, you, and it was the team of people that needed to, it was a lifetime worth of pain.
Yeah.
Culminated in a moment. And I just couldn't be someone's boy again. John, I just couldn't be somebody's boy again. And but I kept it together somehow, like left my body where I got there and took that abuse and did not give it, because all the news would have saw was, right? World Vision, Team World Vision, I mean, loses it. Starts to do the like another angry black race. And if I would have went public on the back end of it, and this is where God checked my heart, all you would have heard is Madison, Wisconsin, racist race, Iron Man, and that's a lie too, because they loved on me. They brought me on the stage. The communities waved, encouraged me. Officers, I'm telling you the truth. It was one of the most epic days and difficult days, 15 hours, 50 minutes, and 15 seconds, y'all. I think something like that. I barely made the cutoff by 42 seconds on the bike. That's how close it was. And for me to boil it down to a couple of people, and that's what we're doing in society, who have lost their mind, who are harboring some bias and then some prejudice, and then they discriminated on me, maybe based on the racism, I think would be a disservice. So my plan is to actually go to them, and I'm gonna stop talking. I apologize. I just need to, that moment, we would not be here if you didn't say some tough stuff to me. The first thing you said was, because I told you about Mission1Race, you're like, listen, man, you can't say you're going to take on lovingly this battle of bringing people together in oneness and not think the enemy's not going to come is not going to challenge you. He's going to challenge you. And I'm messing up the words. And I want you to talk about your other saying too, that starts off with epic. And I'll stop talking, but I wanted to share that moment, because I've never personally said thank you to you like this in this context. But I just, I was at the end of myself. And so let's be patient, even when we see people in this space that have been in the margins of our societies, and sometimes they don't respond perfectly. It's usually an accumulation, not that moment. There was a lot there, but I don't know, brother, what's on your heart?
I think it's good. I remember when you ran, and they called your name, and some woman walked up to you and pulled you aside, and I couldn't see what she was saying. I just saw your face, and I'm like, oh, something's not right. That doesn't look good. And then Jessica's like, yeah, that's not okay. There's something being said that's not okay. Then we got Ty over there, and then you started explaining what was going on. I thought, okay, this is crazy. But here's the deal, right? I think that it's unfortunate that we sometimes have to carry the load for ourselves and others, right? And so I think part of the story of Blackness in America is I have to carry my weight plus your weight, right? I have to do that. So it was one of those moments where I just said, here's the deal. It's another test, right? You can't let it get you down. And here's the deal. No matter what happens, they can't actually take it from you. They can take the medal from you, and they can take whatever else, but they can't actually take what you did. And so I just thought, it was good. I think you handled it. I mean, you were upset. You handled it well, and it was good. I think we got to do epic stuff, right? We have to do epic stuff.
Don't. What's the word I'm looking for? When you censor, don't censor yourself. What's your actual saying, Sean? We're not too churchy on here. We keep it real. Jesus is not gonna. What do you got to do?
You got to do epic shit every day, right? So it's serious, holistic, integrative training, right? You got to do holistic. I mean, you got to just do epic stuff, because here's the deal. One day you will die. And every morning I get up in the morning and I put on Will Smith motivation, TD Jakes. I just listen to motivative people, because here's the deal. If you got whatever you got inside of you, all out. So I don't want to have to be on my deathbed and have 15 things I didn't do. I would rather prefer to fail at 15 things and be like, I'm ready to go. I mean, I didn't get one of them done, right, but at least I tried them, right? I mean, but this idea, I could have done this, I should have done that. I don't have time for that, because I think that I think we're all called to do great things, right?
So watch this. You said something earlier. You said everybody has their Moses moment.
Yep.
I think I'm not being facetious. A part of how this 8 hours to choose, and sometimes I get distracted in my thought, especially so good conversation. I think this is a Moses moment for the United States of America.
Oh, yes.
For the world. I'm not even joking. Like if there's not a better setup for a comeback story.
Right.
There's not a better setup of 243 years worth in this sort of year and worldwide pandemic for us to say in this 244th year. That's what this is birds out of, Sean, just so you know, is repurposing that day that we know is tainted with the history that even Frederick Douglass wrote about, saying, what is the 4th of July for a slave when they were celebrating it? I mean, like the fireworks are awesome, but I'm still here just like getting beat like an animal. Like what kind of dichotomy is this? So we're still in that place.
Right.
We can blame it though. We can repurpose it. And that's what we're trying to do in these 8 hours. And in this reconcile moment where we're saying 8 hours, 8 days of trying to create some kind of pattern where we, instead of choosing to not understand and judge, to understand, right? To forgive, to relate, to heal, to connect, and now to reconcile. And I don't want to I want to land the plane on you giving, because you have tangibly done some things. So this is a little bit of a rapid fire. So I'm getting ready. So if you can give me like tight answers to some of these questions, who am I to talk? I haven't given a one sentence answer since I was, probably just when I had 2 words in my vocabulary, mama. That's about it. All my answers are 5 paragraphs. So I'm going to try as well. So watch this. If we think about reconciliation, and we talked about the steps before, how important is proximity or that connectedness? Do you think that's vital to even being able to reconcile?
Okay, so this is part of my dissertation. Like, I wrote on reconciliation. Number one, if you cannot see it, you cannot reach out for it. You have to be able to see people, right? Metaphorically, physically, you have to see them. So when I talk about reconciliation, it's got to include sabona. And sabona is a South African word that means I see you. I see your full humanity. And then there's Ubuntu. So first I see you, and then Ubuntu is I am because we are. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as biblical reconciliation and not being able to reach out to someone. You just can't. There's no such thing as me being reconciled to someone that I cannot see, touch, and feel and relate to. Basically, it's the idea, if I can't relate to you, I can't be reconciled to you.
Sean, you guys, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm going to drop this phone. I know hearts are going to be healed in this conversation. Let's keep going. I mean, just the alignment. We have never had this conversation, y'all. This need to be clear. There's no implicit bias training for the police force. Watch this. Quickly that, and then how could we reverse that implicit bias training for the general public for police? I think like that, right? Like I think we got implicit bias going on now with police officers. I actually think about it supernatural. I'm like, I don't know why God has blocked my heart. I love police officers. I don't like the bad ones. I don't like the one that told me die N-word, move again with a gun to me. I don't like that. I don't like the one that said, I don't like how you're talking to me. And I'm like, how do I change that? This is just me using my voice, no attitude, like those moments. But how do we flip that? And should we flip that? So implicit bias training and kind of how to flip that.
So I've been doing implicit bias training for law enforcement for the past 6 years. The only difference between teaching civilians and law enforcement is quite simply the ability to use force, right? And so as a cop, you can use force, you can hold someone, you can control them, you can do that. Outside of that, the implicit bias training is the same training. We just focus on different things. And so again, how can we use implicit bias training in our communities as it relates to law enforcement? It's the same way. It's the idea of not everyone who's going to stop me is the problem, right? Not everyone who's going to say, what are you doing, is looking to cause an issue with me. And so I think it's a two-way deal, because I tell officers, if you want to find yourself in trouble, go around doing a proactive police, right?
Yeah.
Right? You got a light out, let me stop you. You got a light out, you get a warning, you have any drugs? I mean, that right there isn't an okay thing. Right? And so I think
fake Minority Report. This is a movie I like. Tom Cruise, by the way. I'm a secret Tom Cruise groupie. I'm praying for it. Yeah.
So I think the same way I would teach cops, I would teach civilians, except for what in the civilian world, you can't end the confrontation or the issue with deadly force without finding yourself within legal ramifications. And if you do so as a police officer illegally, you'll find yourself like the officer here in Minnesota is being whatever. So I think there's not a major difference except for there's force involved.
So good. And I'm going to keep going, but I do want to do a side note because I said a comment before even about that police officer, and I think you agree with me. Here's what's tough about this forgiveness thing, this healing thing, this moving forward reconciliation thing. We actually have to want that officer to have a change of heart, to somehow, before God, like seek forgiveness, because we're not going to be the ultimate judge. We don't know what's going on, but actually be transformed. Wouldn't it be, right? Wouldn't that be a better story for George Floyd's life not being in vain? Is us taking, not that it is in vain, or like his death and his untimely death, is that officer actually finding some transformation and seeing that, wait, I actually killed my son. I actually killed my brother. I actually killed, right? To where, I mean, that's how we roll with Mission1Race. It's not like throw out the garbage, if you will. It's like saying, whoa, what happened? We're seeking the hearts of those in dark or those that have harboring bias so that we can actually seek relationship with them and transformation. Because that's a better story than this man. We took him, right? And dismembered him. And so, because that's not going to bring George back. Even the life of this officer. Do you even agree with that approach and mindset?
Yeah, again, it's, so people say, where do you end and where do you begin with a reconciliation? It's quite simply the cross, right? There are consequences for our actions, that's for sure. But to say, to hell with that officer, to hell with him, he goes straight to hell. That's not the cross. The cross is everyone can be redeemed, right? Everyone can rise above the ashes. Doesn't mean that he's no longer that he needs to face the music, that he needs to face the consequences of his actions. I mean, he murdered someone, but the idea of being redeemed, again, I think that this is a side note, but we don't have a department of corrections. We don't correct anything. We have a department of punishment. Because if you were being corrected, you wouldn't have that same behavior anymore. But that's a different thing.
The good part is this won't be our last conversation with Sean. Right. So I'm trying to stay on the bullet point. I think we're doing good. I'm not in a rush necessarily, but I want to respect your time as well. The church's role in human reconciliation and racial reconciliation. Well, it's okay. Like, so we mentioned it kind of, but you are a pastor, not a typical pastor. Which I don't even know. That's not a slight, but I mean, maybe we don't need more typical pastors. Maybe we need more pastors that are more like Jesus, who would just be like, hey guys, hanging out, let's have a conversation and do some epic shit. Like let's do life and figure out each other. Let's build something. I think Jesus would be like building dressers, like construction projects.
Yep.
So what's the church's role, and have we fallen short of that?
Well, number one, I'm going to answer the second question first. We've definitely dropped the ball. We're not about reconciliation as it relates to biblical understanding. You've got conservative Christianity that follows a cultural norm, and you've got leftist Christianity that can't connect its social principles to biblical ideologies. And so I think that we've dropped the ball completely because we keep writing out checks to the community. And now the community is like, okay, we now want our checks cashed and we don't have money for that. So number one, I think we've dropped the ball there. Number two, in my opinion, based upon scripture and how I interpret it, you can't call yourself a Christian and not be a reconciler. 2 Corinthians, right? You've been given the ministry. You've been given the ministry of reconciliation. You're now an ambassador, right? And so the old life is gone, the new life has come, right? And so this idea of not seeking out ways to remove barriers that hinder our purpose, because the word is apokataleia, and that Greek word actually means, how do I remove the barrier that hinders authentic relationships? And so God, through the atonement, was able to remove the barrier of sin from our lives. Yes. And we've been given the ministry. We need to do the same thing, which includes justice, social justice. It includes all that. So I think if you are I can boldly say this. As a pastor, to every other pastor who's hearing my voice, like it or not like it, if you are a pastor, you are the lead in reconciling your people to each other into the community. If you don't see reconciliation as a primary goal, I believe there's something missing there.
Man, I want you to please stick a pin at the end when we land with our 3 points in the fact that you said we are in it as believers, just people as a whole, and especially folks that are leading out in that area, to remove barriers, to remove fake lines and stuff like that. We're gonna come back and land there. I would say, I'm looking at these. I'm not gonna go there. I want to ask you a future question about a concept that I have in my mind, in our hearts, that we're mulling over, called no cop out, where we actually close that gap and we reach out and start having life conversations with officers, right? Like, because I think police have been dehumanized as well. The 5-0, all these like hard. Well, wait a second, that dude is going home to his teenage kids, or to his wife, or to his the majority. I will go out on a risky limb, say the majority of folks serving in law enforcement are in it for the right reasons. Hey, I'll be naively wrong then if I take a life poll and go, wait, actually, there was actually 70% of the police officers that stopped me. I'd rather err on that side. So that's the side conversation we're gonna have. Okay, we're gonna go this way. So I am gonna go there. I really want to bring up this slide, speaking about, and I hit it yesterday, but just hearing you say this about removing barriers. This is what we call the false degrees, and I think I shared it with you, possibly not, or you may have seen it. The false degrees are separate. It's gonna be behind me, so I'm gonna have to do like a game show type deal to see if I can point to it. But I'm just feeling called, like, let's go there and see what we can do. Can you see this behind me, this wheel?
Yep.
Yes or no? Okay, so. Yep. This wheel, which I can send to you again, you can see some of the sections of it and the titles on it, goes to different aspects of life, some of which we're born with, right? Age, ethnicity, gender, right? And some of which, right next to it, have been life choices, even lifestyle, right? Political views and faith, right? But all of them, I don't see scriptural truth to it, because it's not, because may we be one is actually, Jesus' prayer. But there's societal pressure to separate based on this history, education, vocation, location is over here. Does that make sense? We just said it. Our job is not to uphold these false degrees and separations and lines that we put in, is to say, yet and still, you're my sister. Yet and still, you're my brother. Am I right or wrong in that approach? And do we align with that?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the issue isn't that. Again, it goes into those 3 principles: food and water, shelter, reproduction. I found my cave. You show up, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Get out of here!" My first thought isn't, okay, there's 2 of us now. I need a bigger cave. We don't think like I need to get more. I need to get something bigger. It's like, yo, get out. It's like, I got here first, you need to leave. And not like, oh, wow, well, there's 2 of us now. We need to find a bigger cave for 2 of us.
All of that energy. Look what you just, like, Sean, you say things and you pass them through like they're small and they're big, because I even hear extreme statements like, the main problem with the planet is people. Anytime that's our conclusion, I'm nervous, right? Anytime the main problem, well, I know how we fix the poverty, we fix the ozone, all that stuff. We got to get rid of 1/3 of humanity, then we'll be fine. I'm pretty sure we can take that energy and go a different direction. And I'm pretty sure if we pray about that, God's going to be like, that's not my plan. My plan is not mass reduction of humanity, is what you just said. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. If we caught what he said, is like, when another person shows up, or when something we don't understand shows up, the immediate response isn't get rid of it, devalue it, suppress it, assimilate it. It's pause, understand it, right? And then it becomes a communal response of saying, okay, how do we make room for that? Yeah. I don't have to change my value system, right? I don't have to denounce my beliefs and my ideals of life, but I can make room for this person working through whatever they're working through, as long as it's not, damaging and abusive, right, and everything else, right? So then we have a different conversation.
Right. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. our reveals. I'm going to go back to my screen so I'm not distracting with the background here. This is me. I'm a technologically advanced, as you can tell. Make sure I bring the right background up. I shouldn't have done that, Sean, because now I got it right. All right. So here's the reveal moment. And this has been an awesome conversation. We've talked, and we are going to align. So these concepts that you heard, Dr. Sean Moore is going to be speaking into. If you liked anything he said, watch. His fingerprints are going to be throughout this movement, our curriculum, serving on our mission executive board, and then at his church, the Living Spirit UMC, right? Is going to be one of our early adapters of the one community. And where we're walking out, and in that one community doing activities, he's already put ideas that I wasn't even thinking of. And that's what each person has done as they've come and God has brought their heart and their talent to this movement. One Truth, which is basically just saying, I guess I didn't ask him about this part, but I'm pretty much sure he won't mind me talking to his congregation a bit. Right? They can get to know me. I might do a message or two, right? That's what basically we call One Truth. We call it We Are Uniquely the Same, and it's all, aligned. So if you're not a church, don't worry. There's messaging and information available in One World where it's not just faith-based, but no matter what, it's going to be scripture-based. Because let me tell you what motivates me, what fuels me is the love of God.
So let me speak to that real quick.
Yeah.
So here's what I've come to realize about the secular world. Nobody actually cares about me being a pastor and me saying, hey, can I pray? No one cares about that. They care about me coming in and saying, hey, you're going to go to hell if you don't change your ways. You're going to do this. It's like the idea of, it's like the secular world or the world that's outside of our churches are more accepting than Christians are to the outside world coming in. Like we've had all types of rules for outsiders to come in. But outsiders are like, mind your own business and you're good to stay here. You can eat right next to me as long as you don't pour your stuff on me. So I think that having a faith-based organization in the secular world, no one actually is like, oh, I'm offended by you. You've got a faith. You're doing good works. You're serving people. You're loving people. Get out of here with all that craziness. It's not that. It's like we come in pointing fingers, throwing Bibles. Shut up, sit down. Let me tell you something. Like, oh, goodness, you can leave with all that craziness.
Are we not brothers? People are watching this gonna be like, wait a second. There's a taller, he's significantly taller than me. Sean, how tall are you again? That's why I'm staying next to you in photos. You gotta sit down. 6 foot what?
Just six.
6 foot. Must be the braids on top of that, because that's the other dichotomy we got going on here. You're getting the range of black male right here, right? Peanut buttery, chocolate, full braids, Montel Williams. Anyway, we have to have a moment of levity. And it's all love there. The other thing, the thing we're going to land with, which tomorrow, actually in 2 days, we're inviting everyone into, that you have said yes to in a unique way, is the Journey 2020, which is actually what the documentary is based on before it was even named, where people are doing epic. I'll let you do it. You do it better, because that sounds unnatural. It sounds unnatural. And we're coming together, folks from all different backgrounds. And the thing I didn't tell you this, Pastor Sean Moore, is the way we're doing it for nonprofits and or churches that are nonprofits is when you're leaning in and running either the whole 250 miles over 6 days, 1 day, or a relay team of either 1 day or the whole team, or virtually, and you're saying day 4, you're going to do a virtual team, right? In Minnesota, you've already identified that runner. If we want to put them on blast, him or her on blast, we'll do it now. If not, we'll be nice and wait for it. But I'm so excited. It's not even funny. So that is what's going to happen, right? With the Journey 2020. But what I'm excited about is not only is it funding this work, this curriculum we're making, the content that we're putting out there that is affecting positively people's hearts and minds, the curriculum that's rewiring things that are mistaught, the funds that we can actually help fund organizations that are doing some of the legislative work of like switching systemic issues like mass incarceration and the laws behind that and educational gaps and things like that. But it also allows us to put on an event and bring communities together to run these one communities, to set them up and so forth. And then last but not least, the collaboration. So we got content, collaborations, community, and um, content collaborations, community, and what? How am I missing my last ones? I sound crazy right now. No, content, community, collaborations, and curriculum. Thank you. I just had to, we talked about so much. So you're in on that. So I'm excited. And those funds go 50-50 with your nonprofit. All we need is the EIN. I had some pastors excited about it. He said, what are you saying? I can help bring folks towards oneness and bless my local community. I was like, yes, why not? That's literally the nature of Mission1Race. Is about, I understand the churches that we represent, the communities we represent have real needs. It's almost like the both and conversation of extreme poverty and poverty, right? You don't say I address one and not the other. You don't say, oh, I want to give to that movement, but my church doesn't. No, we're in a place where we know funds and resources with what has happened in our world and locally. So let's do this together. So we plan on that being one of the most epic times, December 6th through the 13th, but the run is the 7th through the 12th. And day 4, December 10th, you're going to be virtually with us. Am I wrong?
No,
okay.
I am going to be there.
You're landing the plane. I'm not going to have last word. Where do we go from here? I'm saying like society with this reconciliation. Where do we go from here?
Two things. Number one, hear the stories of people who are being harmed and believe them. This idea of people sharing their hurt or their testimony or their eyewitness account, and you're like, well, was it really that bad? Yes, it is that bad. So a part of reconciliation is being able to hear this story. Then once you hear that story, it's the idea of sharing the story. So, I mean, again, you can't have racial reconciliation without justice, and you can't have justice work without the idea of eyewitness account. You have to be able to share your story. That's reconciliation. Share your story, get all of the garbage out, collect it, refine it, reshape it, create something new.
Love it. Did you 1, 2, 3 me? You're so much better. That's it. That's what we're gonna do. So Sean's gonna be sewing into it, serving on our board. Thank you so much. Again, I'm praying that love, mission, and oneness already is in your heart. Yeah, I pray for health and the future of your family and so forth and what you're doing. And I can't wait to talk to you again. God bless. I'll talk to you soon.
God bless you.
All right.
Peace and love. Take care, everyone.
I almost didn't want to say anything after that interview. Really, what else needs to be said? So let's just land the plane here, because I even though we won't have time to do the discuss the side full on, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. So decide and discuss who you are seeking reconciliation from. And we know we can't force it. That's the painful part about putting ourselves out there, looking for that. It takes two, right? And you have to see, like Dr. Sean Moore said, so find places, and we're going to provide some of those places, both virtually and in person, through our one communities where folks can seek to reconcile and just understand, and all the other principles we talked about. Next, decide and discuss who you may need to initiate reconciliation with, because of maybe some of your actions or words. This is tough stuff. So we're writing all these down. I think there's people that have been doing that throughout these 8 days. Last but not least, my 3 points and 3 CTAs. The reason we're saying 8 hours to choose is because we can choose over these 8 hours to create a different 244th year. And we can be looking back at this time and say, we chose love over hate as a majority. I cannot wait for that moment. I believe in it. I believe there's a form of a revival happening of love, mission, and oneness. Number 2, since we are the United States of America, we have the freedom to choose. Thank God for that. We still do. A lot of places, there's a lot of choices that have been taken away from them, but you can. And even in the small ways, or the most important ways, how you treat those that serve you, how you treat those you collaborate with, how you treat those you don't understand or know yet, or have seen assumptions on media or other places about. Take every person for themselves. Number 3, if you're going to choose love, choose mission, choose oneness, because there's a thing. We do have the freedom to choose, but people are choosing darkness. They're choosing disconnecting. They're choosing hate. They're choosing discrimination, bias, prejudice. 3 CTAs, go ahead, come on back and share this. Number 2, check out Man on a Mission, the Search for Oneness. If you want, you see a little bit more of our collective heart and what we're about. And number 3, we'll see you on hour 7, Love, with a special guest, the man who helped form me, John Relaford. It's a powerful conversation. And again, some things that have never been said publicly. Born in 1939 in Hope, Arkansas. And he's still spry. You'll see. 81 years old strong. Your brother, we are uniquely the same. In the name of love, mission, and oneness. God bless.